to another episode of Nydal. What you see on the screen to the right of the screen is actually a little bit of work that I've been doing off camera. Mostly, I've just been expanding neighborhoods, sort of following the same aesthetic, the same design patterns, and just wanted to take a few moments of this episode just to show you some cinematics. This whole area was kind of done, off camera until this point where I'm showing you all these stuff. On top of that, I wanted to let you know that I posted a little tram ride on my Twitter account. So head over to twitter.com/stricttoaster. And it's probably one of the newest posts by the time this video comes out. If not, I'm going to include a link straight up to the tweet itself in the description of this video, so you can go check it out. It's basically me following the tram on one of the couple lines that we have at Nydal. But before I begin with this episode, I wanted to quickly come back to this little roundabout section that we worked on in the previous episode. I've gotten a lot of comments about that gas station that's right next to this. Maybe it wasn't clear enough, but that's not finished at all. Like, I haven't even started it yet, to be honest. So right now what I'm doing here is just I'm addressing another pretty recurrent comment from the previous episode, which was the fact that roundabouts in Europe don't usually have stop signs. They just have yield signs or give way signs. So I just quickly replaced them, and I'll show you that on camera as a segue to talk about the gas station as well. But don't worry about that. We're gonna come back to that whole area of the map in a future episode. This one, since I was a little short on time this week, I decided to sort of improve an area that I left undetailed. Specifically, this giant brand new hospital that's in the city that contrasts with all the architecture that's around it. That's kind of by design. I've talked about this many times before during this series, but I wanted to have certain things in Nydal that are not all, the classic European look. There's certainly new buildings that pop up, and not necessarily the most good-looking ones. This hospital right here is a good example. I mean, the outside itself looks great. The only thing I'm not so sure about is that giant hospital sign that's on the top. Unfortunately, that is not a prop. All the other props from this building were removed, obviously, the hedges, the parking lots, and all that. And basically what I'm doing is just I'm surrounding this hospital with some parking lot roads, and trying to connect them with the adjacent road network. Also, at the same time, I'm sort of trying to address the height difference, which is not huge, but it's it's tall enough that I'm gonna have to resource to some of these walls right here, which ended up looking much better than I thought. I mean, I've been doing this already a million times all over the city, but every time I just tackle one of these projects and I put the walls and it kind of covers and it hides all the imperfections, there's just, like a little trigger of happiness in my brain. It's like, yeah, this looks awesome. And I'm guessing many of you do too. That's why you're probably watching this series. I hope that's why you're watching the series. But it's a pretty simple build. I wasn't, planning on going too crazy with it. In fact, in a minute here, I'm actually getting ahead of myself, but what I was going to say is that one of the reasons why I had to put down this hospital, as well as some of the crematoriums that are right next to the hospital right now, but I'm going to move in just a couple of minutes. We're having a bit of a coverage issue when it comes to health in this case. Usually I don't really care all that much about, the actual game mechanics, having like evenly distributed hospitals and crematoriums and police stations and whatnot, but it was affecting the city in a way that was negative. I think it was creating some traffic issues because, a lot of hearses had to drive from very far away, and obviously they weren't reaching all the buildings fast enough, so I was getting all these notifications from dead people. And I know I can use mods to turn it off, but I've been kind of avoiding using that. In fact, I've gotten a lot of comments about how to hide the underwater network notification, like little pop-up that keeps blinking, because the terraforming terraforming networks that I used a couple episodes ago to shape that canal that we did. It's kind of screaming all the time on the screen, especially when I host live streams. People go nuts with those. So I might end up resourcing to use mods for that particular area. But in general, I'm kind of trying to keep it minimal with the use of mods. Says the guy who has like 40 mods installed for this game. But I don't know. Maybe I don't know if I'm making any sense. Hopefully I do. But it's certainly something that I'm not too concerned about, having those notifications be hidden, as long as I can do something about it, which means in this case putting down hospitals and crematoriums where they supposedly should be. I also had to reshape some of the blocks that I put down initially off camera, because sometimes I forget to turn off the collision feature and move it. And it gets a little tricky, and I just deleted half a block doing that. Gotta be careful. I wish that was the default option to not have any kind of collision of any kind, because, well, I said any kind of collision of any kind. That makes no sense. In any case, another big thing that I was having issues with is power. And I've been using this little asset that produces 160 megawatts of power, which basically it's like half the power a city needs, in case you were wondering. In City Skylines terms, not really in real life terms. Actually, I don't know how much power a city of this size actually requires. But I decided to, instead of hiding it inside a building, which is kind of what I usually do, just put it sort of visible from this hospital, kind of like their generation room, and usually hospitals have like a backup power system, and I figured this could sort of look like that. I had that little triangle area that was empty on the side of the hospital, so I figured that would be a good spot for it. Instead of just simply hiding it, just try to integrate it and use it as a detailing tool for this particular build. And finally, all I'm doing here is just adding a few bushes, a few planters, just making things look a little bit more integrated with everything that's around it, given that this building, it's kind of, it's like it kind of stands out, I guess is what I'm trying to say, compared to everything that's around it. It's definitely something that stands out. And this is part of the same strategy here, putting down these crematoriums. I'm trying to build them inside, or try to make them so that hearses come out of these classic looking buildings. At least that's usually what I've seen happen in cities. Like, you don't have a very unique looking crematorium or funeral home. They just sort of repurpose an existing building, and that's kind of what I was aiming for there. It's not like an amazing job at having everything be aligned perfectly, just enough that when you see hearses spawn in the city, they sort of come out of a random house garage. And I don't know, just thought that was probably good enough. You can let me know down in the comments if you disagree, but I probably won't change it. In any case, I sort of took advantage of this area that I was working on to expand a little bit, and ended up coming with this little park right here. I was playing around with some of these hedges in the beginning, trying to use the network version of hedges, but since the terrain is all kind of, it varies quite a bit in terms of height, I ended up using a lot of props in this episode in general, just because these hedges in particular, the ones I'm using right now on the screen, were a much better fit than the network-based ones. So I don't know. And also, to keep things interesting, you want to try to vary the assets that you use in general, and not always use the same thing over and over, just to avoid that repetitiveness aspect to things. Now over here, instead of having a perfectly symmetrical park, I decided to take one of these triangle shape gaps in the park, and then just put a little area for people to grab a sandwich or something like that from this grill asset that we've been using. Actually, I think I only used this once in this project. I used to use this asset a lot in previous projects, but I think there's I think there's much better assets now in the workshop that I don't have to really use this one. but just paired with some umbrellas over the tables, it just really makes the whole little coffee shop, sandwich shop area look a bit more realistic. In this particular case, this building, by the way, I think it's like a high school or something like that. I put it a long time ago because, again, I was having some issues with a worker shortage, and I think it was like due to uneducated number of people in the city. And obviously was getting a lot of complaints from offices saying that, you know, they didn't have enough workers. So I put down that school and I kind of fixed it for a while. So all that needed to be done there is just detailing a little bit. All I did, as you can see, is just added a fence around it and some trees, and that's pretty much it. I wanted to keep things simple, at least for that build. I may come back in the future and add a few more things, but for the time being, that was good enough. Now this one actually turned out to be really kind of awesome. Since I had such a tiny corner there, I decided to sort of create like a little palace. I would imagine this would be like a museum or like a historic house in a real city, where it's just like it's like a house that's pretty tall and kind of luxurious, or an embassy. This could also be like an embassy kind of building. I don't know. That's the vibe that I'm getting from it, but it just occupies that tiny little corner there, and I don't know, just I think it ended up looking great. All I did in terms of decorations, just put a few of these potted plants and a couple of trees and bushes, and that was basically it. That's pretty much the whole aesthetic of Nydal so far, in case you haven't noticed. Just try to occupy the little gaps with a few planters, with smaller trees for the most part, and every once in a while we'll put a big oak or anything of that size, just to have a variety of vegetation across the many streets and just the road network in general. And finally, one thing that I haven't been doing lately is adding churches. So here's another church, and it's actually pretty big, and it's just sitting in front of the plaza. And you know, for a while I was debating with myself whether or not I wanted this sort of historical building, because it's certainly historical given the aesthetic of it, right next to that giant modern hospital. But I figured, you know what, like, let's leave the contrast there. I think these things do happen in real life. They don't necessarily will avoid having a hospital if the need was there, just because there's like a pretty church in front of it, if that makes any sense. I'll let you be the judge of that when you look at the cinematics at the end of the video, which, by the way, I kind of forgot, honestly, in the previous episode to do the before and after shot, but I brought it back for this one, and it's a little bit longer, so hopefully you'll enjoy it, and you can let me know what you think about that specific contrast there with the church and just everything else once you see like the wide shots where that hospital sort of sticks out from all the other buildings around it. It's I don't know, it just creates a bit more character in the city skyline, given the name of the game, I guess. But yeah, what else? I feel like I'm missing anything. Oh yeah, just one little thing right here. Started playing with these planters. Those trees are a little bit too big for those. But honestly, when I saw this courtyard, I figured, okay, this looks great, but I think it will look much better if we actually had some tile decals on it. So that's kind of what I did. I'm using these decals by King Leno. They're actually pretty awesome. I've used them in other places as well, but in this case, I thought they fit fantastically well in this courtyard, except those tiny little decals that I put down, they're invisible now, so I had to remove them, and instead I replaced them with proper planters, as you can see on the screen right now. And as I was saying before, all I'm doing next is just putting a few trees around this building. I didn't want to like have a forest around it, because you obviously don't want to block all the windows so that people can actually see outside, but just enough that creates a bit of a park sort of area, and just breaks just the flow of constant buildings and concrete with some vegetation. That's usually what I'm aiming for. Finally, this little roundabout, I'm not entirely sure what I was thinking when I put this one together. It looks okay at the end, don't get me wrong, but it's certainly like I haven't done any of these roundabouts with this kind of marking before. And I'm not 100% sure I love it. I'm gonna keep it for now because I'm okay with it, but I may change it in the future. Mainly because, you know, it's like a new thing that doesn't quite match the previous things that we had in the city. I don't know. We'll figure something out. Wow, that was a quick episode. Even though this one is actually longer than the couple ones that I've done before. Here's the before and after, as I promised, and you can see how much the city has grown, including the work that I did off camera. And if you enjoyed this episode so far in the series, make sure to give this video a like and also subscribe if you're new to the channel. But that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.